Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James. Second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland! This is for you!
What is up, Cavs fans? Welcome into another edition of the Block the Shot to Stop here with Skylar Webker. I am Kevin Lynch. This is the trade alert episode. We have our first action of the trade deadline as far as the Cavs are concerned, and it's a big one. The main points of the trade are the Cavs have sent out DeAndre Hunter to the Sacramento Kings, bringing back Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis. Skylar, this happened late at night last night. So I think 10:30 my time in the Central Time Zone. It kept me up for a good hour and a half scouring like why the Kings would do this trade. But I'll let you kind of kick us off. What I guess are your initial reactions? What are some of the things you've read about the trade? Where are you at?
To me, this is such a good move by the Cavs, just in the sense of you didn't get what you expected out of Lonzo Ball. So you're bringing in
DeAndre Hunter, you mean?
Oh, I'm going Lonzo
you
Ball.
You are going Lonzo Ball. Okay. All right. Let's
you didn't get what you didn't get what you expected out of Lonzo Ball. So you didn't get really Darius Garland insurance. You let Ty Jerome walk because he was your Darius Garland insurance last year. Craig Porter has stepped up and been good, but I think you would agree that Dennis Schroeder is way better Darius Garland insurance than Craig Porter at this current junction. And then just to trade with a dumb team like the Kings, who their timeline right now is hilarious. But basically, Ellis was the throw-in on this to get it done on the Kings side. And he's a guy that's going to come in and be your defensive stalwart. He's going to be locked down on the perimeter, locked down. I mean, I watched his highlights basically the past 12 hours, and just his defensive prowess on anything. His stat sheet won't impress you much, but he has positive win shares. He contributes to winning on the team. His defensive numbers are way better than Isaac Okoro was, and we kind of talked about what a defensive stalwart Isaac Okoro was for this team. So I love this move, and kudos to Kobe Altman for seeing that something wasn't working in DeAndre Hunter and pivoting and making the move. Most GMs, especially the GMs for the terrible sports franchises I root for, if they make a big move, they stand by that move until it basically costs them their job. And Kenny Atkinson, not Kenny Atkinson, sorry, Kobe Altman is not like that. He is fine to admit when something didn't work out and move on to the next thing. He did that with Andre Drummond, saw that wasn't working out, waived him, and got Jared Allen in the big Brooklyn trade. So kudos to Kobe Altman for doing all he can to make this team incredible year in and year out.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack with the trade, and a lot like kind of that you said. The first thing I want to reiterate that you said, because I've said online, I've said on this podcast, I've talked about it with you beforehand. I would exclusively trade with the 5 dumbest teams in the NBA, and the Kings are at the top of that list. Like, when was the last time you said, "Wow, the Kings really won that trade"? Like, I can't remember a time. This is the same team that traded Tyrese Halliburton when everyone in the league thought he was going to be the next superstar point guard. They gave up on De'Aaron Fox, last year and got pennies on the dollar for him. They are the team that decided to reunite DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine after watching it work terribly in Chicago for a few years. They're like, no, we're going to run it back. This is the move. And even better, let's throw Russell Westbrook into the mix. This is going to, we throw enough dysfunction at each other, it's going to function. So there is no reason that the Kings did this trade. They had a very good asset in Keon Ellis, who is a very good 3-and-D player on a minimum salary. There was a potential bidding war brewing for him with some of the smartest teams in the league. The Celtics were trying to get in on it. The Nuggets were trying to get on it. The Thunder were trying to get in on getting him. And instead of letting that bidding war happen and collecting draft capital, which is what they should have done as a team that needs a reset, they decided to package him with Dennis Schroeder, who's an okay contract. I wouldn't say it's a bad or good contract, but he's a fine player on a decent contract. They basically use Keon Ellis to get off of Dennis Schroeder, but then take back more money in DeAndre Hunter, a mid-career player who does not fit their timeline at all. And instead of getting draft picks, they actually had to give up a second round pick in this trade to the Bulls. The Kings are so dumb. This is why you trade with the Kings. This trade will work out for the Cavs. I should say it may or may not work out for the Cavs. Just, always a chance of injury. There's a chance of, whatever, not working. But I promise you, it's not going to work out for the Kings. That much I can say very, very confidently. Getting into the players in the trade, I want to start with Keon Ellis. We'll come back to DeAndre Hunter, who's now played his last game for the Cavs. But I want to talk about the guys that the Cavs are getting first. You mentioned it. Keon Ellis, his stat line's not going to blow you away. I will say, don't just look at his numbers this year. Look at his career numbers. This year, his numbers are much lower because the Kings have been completely dysfunctional because they brought in a Zach LaVine, they brought in Russell Westbrook, they brought in Dennis Schroeder, and now he barely gets to shoot the ball. His first 3 years in the league, he was shooting well over 40% from three, as well as being a borderline elite perimeter defender. That is a super valuable guy, especially when you factor in he's on a minimum contract. And if they can get Ellis to kind of play like he has for his whole career up until the last 20, 30 games with the Kings, when they've just kind of screwed up their whole team and rotation. And that's the reason Malik Monk is having the worst year of his career. Also, I think the Cavs could find a real diamond in the rough here with Keon Ellis.
For sure. I think Keon Ellis, like I said, he was the valuable asset in this deal.
Mm-hmm.
And in this, that I think is kind of missed, is that the Cavs now get his bird rights. So they can go above their, even in the second apron, they can go above and beyond to extend him, which is kind of valuable as the Cavs, who maybe have a limited mobility just in their financial situation or the apron situation. But as we've kind of seen, Dan Gilbert has no problem spending money, at all. He actually saves money. He saves $50 million in this move, just in the tax money.
Yeah, it's really great. And if you're looking for a comp with Keon Ellis that Cavs fans will understand, and some might not like this, might not like hearing this. I think it's a positive thing. He's Isaac Okoro who can shoot. That's who Keon Ellis is. He is about as good a perimeter defender. He's about the same size, athleticism, strength as Isaac Okoro. But the knock on Okoro was always you teams would leave him open in the corner because they never thought he would hit the shot. And unfortunately, Isaac was having his best offensive season until he hurt his shoulder last year, and then it kind of went sideways, and then they ended up trading him in the offseason. But that's the comp, and that's a comp I really like for I think this team misses Isaac Okoro, and if you can get an Isaac Okoro type player who can also shoot really well from three, and spot up in the corners on all those Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, now Dennis Schroeder drives to the basket. There's short rolls from Jalen Tyson that he's been so good at decision making on. And you put a guy in the corner that's going to hit over 40% of his threes and then come down and defend the best perimeter player on the other team. I'm pretty excited about this.
Dude, can you imagine late in games, you have probably Jalen Tyson, Keon Ellis, Evan Mobley. Let's just leave it at those guys as kind of your defending and offensive players. It's going to be hard to score on the Cavs late in games.
Well, and the Cavs became a lot more versatile, I think, with this move defensively for sure. And we'll talk about Hunter more, but the problem with DeAndre Hunter was he was very locked in when the basketball was either in his hands or directly in front of him. Like, he liked having the ball in his hands to try and create a shot. He locked in defensively when his defender had the ball, and otherwise he kind of got lost. I can't tell you how many times he got back cut or beat for an offensive rebound or anything, just because he seemed kind of like unaware of what was going on or uninterested. You're never going to worry about with Keon Ellis or Dennis Schroeder for that matter. I think these are guys who are just going to fit what the Cavs want and need. And I actually think the Cavs lost when it comes to pure talent in this deal. I think DeAndre Hunter is more talented than these other two guys, but he just never played to that talent and potential level with the Cavs. And I think both of these guys are a safer bet to get exactly what you need or what you're expecting from them.
For sure. And one thing that I see a lot of Cavs fans online kind of worried about, and it is a fair point, but the locker room chemistry when you bring in a guy like Dennis Schroeder, who's a little bit more of a polarizing, I would say, individual. I'm not worried about that because Kenny Atkinson was the assistant coach in Atlanta when Dennis Schroeder played there. He knows what Dennis Schroeder is. I don't think Kenny Atkinson allows this move or pushes for this move if he doesn't know that he's going to get what he needs out of Dennis Schroeder on the court, off the court. I think that's really important to Kenny.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And Schroeder it can be a little bit of a lightning rod player. I will say I actually was looking at some things. I think some of it comes from he is an ultimate competitive guy, and a lot of times when he has had problems, it's when he's been on teams that lose a lot. So hopefully that's the case, and the Cavs don't lose a lot while he's here, and he doesn't have as many problems. But also he is a contract. If it doesn't work out for whatever reason, I actually think it will work out very well for this season as like Darius Garland insurance, and just kind of like do whatever you have to do to get Garland ready for the playoffs. And if that means ride Schroeder most of the regular season, that's fine. I also think next year, when he's basically an expiring contract, he has like an option deal 2 years from now that's a very low dollar amount. That he will be a very easy contract to move if for whatever this doesn't work out. Teams, high level backup point guards or mid-tier starting point guards is enough in demand, and his contract being manageable enough, especially by the summer, that I don't think it'll be a problem moving him. And again, I think, and we'll kind of shift the conversation to Schroeder here. This is a reaction I had as far as them making this move, is that, one, does this mean the Cavs are not super confident about Darius Garland's health? Because if they were, and if they thought this, these foot injuries were something he was going to get over and be fine with, I don't know if they make this move. And also, are they more confident in Max Strus's health than Darius Garland's? Because Strus would be the guy, if they do think he's going to be back in the next few weeks, that can fill a lot of some of the void that will now be there from DeAndre Hunter, both in terms of minutes and production and, rotation spots and things like that. So it just got me thinking, and we can talk about Schroeder specifically, but like also kind of what this move means for like where the Cavs are thinking as far as the current roster.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of led into it. Maybe I blew the lead there, but I think Schroeder is a better Darius Garland insurance than anybody else you have on this roster right now.
For sure.
Obviously, Craig Porter stepped up. We've been impressed with what we've seen. But even if you think Garland's going to take longer, I think you're okay with that, because we don't like Mitchell at point guard. He's not a point guard, and that's no fault on him. He's not a point guard. Where Schroeder really gives you, like, he can be the starting point guard for a little while if you need. He can come off the bench if you need. If you can get exactly the production that you have in him right now, which is an average of 20, well, he's playing quite a bit of minutes right now, but he's playing 26 minutes right now.
Yeah. With
13, 3, and 5, like I'll take that. That's better than you're getting from Craig Porter, and it's definitely better than you're getting from Lonzo Ball.
Yeah.
So I like this move we know we have an injury history. We know we're probably really thin at guard for probably the first time in this franchise's history.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is an excellent move to bring in. And another point on both of these guys, really, what was one thing that we said we needed in the offseason? We needed tough guys, like junkyard dog type of guys. And you're bringing two of those guys in right now on top of the psychopath that you have in Jalen Tyson.
Yeah, and don't shortchange Naquan Tomlin. He might be one of the craziest people in the league. Yeah. The thing that I think this team has lacked the most this year is playmaking on the offensive end, especially playmaking for others. Like, it seems like when Garland has been out, they have really struggled up until maybe a few games recently at just ball movement and being organized and things like that. That is Dennis Schroeder's strength. His weakness offensively is he's more of an average shooter, both from three and finishing on 2-pointers. But he is excellent at just running an offense and setting other people up. He's always had a really good assist rates. And, I think that has become one of the biggest needs. I mean, obviously the biggest need is just to have Darius Garland healthy, but in absence of that, they need someone who can do some playmaking. I mean, Jalen Tyson has become possibly your number one offensive playmaker for other people. It's wild to even say that or think that, but they desperately need, and frankly, not only is this Darius Garland insurance, this is a little bit of like, we need to take the gas off of Donovan Mitchell a little bit because even if you get Garland back, you can rest Mitchell some games, you can cut back on minutes because Schroeder is such a high level third guard, first guard off the bench, that I think that's maybe a little bit underrated part of having him, is that you are blustering the backcourt depth, both point guard and shooting guard. Even Keon Ellis can even play up to small forward a little bit. And it's because of the injuries to Strus and Garland, and Merrill's been hurt a lot this year, but also like kind of injury prevention with Mitchell in particular. And I think this trade, I'm very confident that they're going to get what they're looking for out of this trade. Will it be enough to propel them up to, a top 2 or 3 seed or to playoff success? I don't know, but I thought bringing in Hunter was more of a wild card last year, where this trade feels like people. I'm not going to call it a home run. I think it's like a solid double. Like you made a strong move from a financial perspective, and you got guys back that you can be really confident on what they're going to give you and filling some need that this team has had this year.
For sure. I think this move makes the Cavs better in the instances like you said. It's not a pure talent-wise, but just on the needs of this team, I think Ellis and Schroeder fill that. And the other thing, with bringing in these two guys, there has to be a corresponding move, just because there's 3 games, I think now, or 4 games that you can have of Naquan Tomlin before you have to convert him. So I'm sure Lonzo Ball's next on this list of departures. Seems like there's a lot of buzz around that. I'm sure they'd probably maybe waive Larry Nance or Thomas Bryant, probably Larry Nance. But those 2 moves alone get them under the tax this year. They're only $5 million off from the tax next year. So I think it bolsters them significantly. You can extend Ellis, so you kind of add to the timeline of this team, because you have Schroeder under contract next year. You can extend Ellis beyond this just this year. So I like it. I like everything about it. And like I said, kudos to Kobe Altman for not just rolling with bad decisions, to actively pivot and make this team better.
Yeah. So I agree with you. If they're not able to make any more moves, they will waive one of those veteran centers. say Friday, the day after the trade deadline, I actually think they're going to be able to make more moves that kind of an opposite trade where maybe they give up 2 to get 1 back or something like that, and to free up a spot without having to just waive one of those veteran players. We can get to that. I do want to spend a few minutes here talking about DeAndre Hunter, the player, who he was for the Cavs, like kind of on his way out. I went back and listened to some of our episode last year when they traded for him, and I think a lot of people were super excited about him coming in. I was truthfully, I was a little bit skeptical. Now, some of my skepticism never came to fruition. DeAndre Hunter has a long injury history that never really showed up in Cleveland. He was very healthy the whole time he was here. The other was the contract. He makes a lot of money, and that did turn into an issue with the Cavs, frankly, because of other moves they made and getting into the second apron. And it becomes an issue when his production falls off the way it is. I looked up this year. There's only 2 guys who make more money than DeAndre Hunter that aren't currently in starting rotations or aren't in starting lineups. It's hard to have a guy making 23 to 25 million, depending on his bonuses, who at best is your 6th man,
Yeah.
I have more thoughts on DeAndre, but I want to like kind of turn it to you, because I know you were super optimistic when he came in and was super happy with his play last year. And then kind of as the season went on, I think everybody got, a little bit more concerned with DeAndre Hunter's production, to the point where most of the fan base are pretty okay with him being traded out.
Yeah, I think last year you got exactly what you hoped for. Like when he came over, I remember we were like, oh, this is amazing. He loved playing because he wasn't just sitting in the corner waiting for Trae Young to throw him the ball in the last second of a shot clock.
Yeah.
He was way more involved defensively, offensively. A lot of that could have just been the connection he had with Ty Jerome in that second unit. And look, we got what we needed last year. Now we didn't get to the finish line, and a lot of that was just getting derailed by injuries and getting derailed by, competitive players. I think we're fixing that, and just didn't see what maybe Kenny was trying to talk up in the offseason. Didn't see like what anybody was saying about it, the hard work or the work ethic or anything. And I'm not doubting any of that. I'm sure he was in the gym consistently every day, staying late. I'm sure of that. But we just didn't see the fruition of that, like taking the leap, demanding that starting role, looking like you belonged in that starting role.
Agreed. And it definitely got worse as the season went on. Like his last 10 games, he averaged less than 12 points, barely over 3 rebounds. He's shooting 28% from 3, 41% overall. DeAndre frustrates me, and I've expressed that before, because I think he has the ability to be one of the absolute best role players in all of the NBA. Like if he embraced that, if he embraced, digging in defensively, like being an active participant on the boards, cutting, off ball cutting, things like that. And he never really embraced those type of parts of his game. He wants to be the guy who has the ball in his hands and is creating in ISO situations. He's the guy who, as I said, gets really locked in when he's like guarding someone one-on-one. It's mano a mano, but then he gets back cut constantly. He gives up offensive rebounds constantly because he's not, not locked in on the defensive end if he's not on the ball guarding. And that's why obviously it's nothing personal. DeAndre Hunter seems like a perfectly good guy and everything, but like if you lined up this whole Cavs team pre-trade, obviously, and you'd never seen any of them play before, and you're like, we're gonna play a pickup game. Let's pick who you want to play. I think you might pick Mobley first, but you would pick Hunter second, just looking at these guys and judging them as basketball players. He's 6'8", incredibly strong. I know I said I've never seen a guy as strong as DeAndre Hunter get the ball ripped out of his hands as often as he does. Like, it's just, he was, like I said, he was a real source of frustration for me. But I wanted to be wrong. I wanted it to work. And now, like I said, it makes me, this whole trade makes me a little bit sad because, like, profile wise, DeAndre Hunter is exactly what this team needed. He just, like, and I kind of put it on him that he was never willing to do a lot of the things that they're now getting from Jalen Tyson to make it work and to be the fifth guy and to be, an integral part of this team, having, like, playoff success. And like I said, I'm a little bit bummed out, to be honest.
Well, let's continue to give Jalen Tyson his flowers, because I don't think the Cavs make this trade unless Jalen Tyson has the
100%.
ascension that he has had.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with that. And I would say, as far as, the Cavs' future moves, we can kind of pivot if we want to do any speculating or anything. I do think there's moves for them left to make. I do think a few things are very, very true now. So I don't think there's any way they trade Dean Wade. I think that a lot of people thought because Dean Wade's expiring contract, that would be somebody to move. I think that Dean Wade becomes an even more essential part of this team now without DeAndre Hunter, because of his size and defensive ability and lineup flexibility. So, you're down to obviously Lonzo, the minimum veteran players. Those are guys you could look to trade. I wouldn't be surprised if they took calls on Garland now. Like, because as good as Garland is, he's basically been having problems with his feet for a year. And now it's both feet, and he's owed an absolute ton of money. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Cavs, and I think it'd be really tough to do before the deadline. This is more maybe a summer thing. If they now say, like, maybe there's a different player we could use that near max spot on that might be better for the roster. But I don't know. I mean, if you had to speculate, are you locked in on a Lonzo move? Do you think there's something else they might try and do?
I don't think Garland's realistic until they know about Mitchell. So,
yeah,
for context, next year, I guess, at the end of next year, they have the opportunity to extend both Mitchell and Garland. So I think you really have to contemplate, what can we do? What is Mitchell's plan? Because you can't get rid of both of those guys, or you can't afford to lose both of those guys. I agree that the health stuff is troublesome. I think this is the best insurance that we've had in Schroeder long term, outside of the 1 year deal that we had with Ty Jerome.
Yeah.
To me, I think Lonzo's gone. I think for obvious reasons, other teams want the contract because they can just decline the option and be done with it and absorb $10 million out of nowhere. So I think Lonzo's gone. They might try to see what they can get for Nance or maybe Bryant. I wouldn't doubt Max Strus.
That's where my head's at too. I think, like, if you're asking for the most likely guys to be traded, it's Lonzo's number one and Max Strus is number two, because those two guys together, you come up to like basically $26 million. That's enough for them to probably get a pretty good player, and for them to get under the second apron, to give them much more flexibility, not only this trade deadline, but going into next summer and all of those things. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're looking for a trade, whether it's two trades or they can roll it into one, where it's Lonzo and they trade out Lonzo and Strus, probably try and get one more either big guy or bigger perimeter player, and try and sneak under the second apron at the same time, because now they're in a realistic shot of being able to get under the second apron.
Yeah, and because they're in the second apron, they can't do it 2-for-1, so it's going to take a 3-team deal or
Mhm.
something, or 2 individual moves. But I wouldn't doubt Max Strus not being on this team by Thursday. I can almost guarantee you Lonzo Ball will not be on this team come Thursday.
Yeah. I mean, you would think, and I think that's the realistic stuff. I mean, it's so hard to trade superstar players at the deadline. Those transactions almost always happen in the summer. So if that's the case, then you would think there's not a if they're not going to trade one of the core four, which I still don't think I don't think they will, despite what I said about like thinking about the Garland thing. That's more of the summertime. They're not going to trade the core four. They're not going to trade like any of these young guys who are on minimum or near minimum deals that are performing super well. That doesn't leave many guys left on who they would trade, and I think it makes it pretty easy to point at Lonzo, obviously because of the performance and his expiring contract. Max, because you've gotten literally zero from him. He missed half the season last year. He's missed the full season to date. And he's taking up a $16 million, salary slot. So, it'll be really interesting to see what else happens. We can kind of, we'll certainly, try and hop back on as soon as we can if another trade does go down and talk about that. The only other thing that's really happened since our last episode, they played one game Friday night against Phoenix. It was a stinker, if we're being honest. The Cavs have been playing super well, and they laid a stinker on Friday night. And I don't worry about it too much when you're playing really well for a 15-game stretch and you have one stinker. I think that happens. The whole key is how do they bounce back and, tonight against the Trailblazers and the rest of this week on their West Coast trip. But did you have any kind of thoughts from that Phoenix game?
I didn't get to watch a ton of it just being on Eastern time and anything like that. But I saw Kenny's post-game comments with his kind of having a problem with the officiating, only having one free throw attempt from the third quarter on. He actually got fined $50,000 for contact on an official. So I think it's fine, especially the first day. I mean, you and I travel decently for work. That first day, especially going West Coast, it's totally understandable to be like not fully set into rhythm. So I expect them to be a little more in rhythm here tonight against Portland, who not the greatest of teams, but they got some good players. I love Avia, but going from here to LA to Sacramento, it should be all right.
Yeah, I again, stinker of a game. Didn't want to focus too much on the bad of this game because they have been playing well and this can happen. The only thing from a good perspective, like I just thought, and I watched, for those out there that are not based in Cleveland, or if you are, whatever, NBA League Pass, the compressed version of a game, because I was out Friday night, so I watched in 14 minutes. I watched the entire game except for free throws and timeouts. Like it's absolutely the best thing ever, especially when it's a bad game that you really don't want to spend 2 hours watching. So I watched that, and Naquan Tomlin I think continues to solidify his place in this lineup. I think he is, frankly, a little bit of a reason why they're comfortable trading Hunter, because they got more and more confident. This guy's a real rotation player. Ends up with 14 points, 5 assists, 6 of 9 shooting. He's finally starting to shoot the three ball a little bit better. His stroke always looked decent, but the percentage didn't really match. And now that I'm looking at it, his percentage still is bad from three, but but I do think that part of his game is slowly starting to come around, and he is so explosive around the baskets. He's like just a type of player the Cavs, I feel like, haven't had in a while, with his, athleticism and how aggressively he attacks the basket. I just really love Naquan Tomlin, and I didn't love very much else about this game. And unless you got something else, we don't have to focus on it anymore.
Nothing on this game, but is there maybe a name or a position you're looking for? Maybe in that $16 million or $26 million range, probably less than that because the Cavs want to get out of little further out of the tax there, but let's just say somewhere in that $15 million range. Is there a name you like? Is there a position you like?
It's a great question. So I'm open to a third big, but my hesitation with that is that like Kenny doesn't like he doesn't like playing our two bigs, Allen and Mobley together a lot in the fourth quarter. Is it worth cashing in chips to get a third big? The name that has been floated out there, Daron Sharp, I think is a great. He would be a great complement to Mobley and Allen. I would be all about bringing him in. But my hesitation is, would Kenny play him and look to him, enough, like give him enough of an opportunity to earn whatever they'd have to send out? Because they'd probably have to send out like a first round pick swap or something like that if it was just a salary dump. Otherwise, I would continue. I continue to look for more size on the wing, and more than anything, I want this team to prioritize guys who contribute on both ends of the floor. That's why I like Keon Ellis so much, because he's so good defensively and he's such a good shooter. He doesn't create a lot, or whatever, but you can get really good contributions from him on both sides of the ball. And I feel like the Cavs the last few years have had guys who are really high level on one side and kind of a detriment on the other side. So I'd continue to look for like bigger 3-and-D wing or a third big, kind of back up like a Daron Sharp, particularly somebody who's like, really physical, that, the things that people complain that, Jared Allen especially isn't.
Before you said looking for a big or anything like that, I thought you were going to say looking for another dumb team to make a deal with.
Absolutely. Like 100%. Like I'd go back to the Kings and say, what else you got? I would go to the Kings. I would go to the Wizards. I would go to the Pelicans. There's a couple other I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but like those are the teams. I go to those teams all day long because again, you don't lose trades again with those teams hardly ever.
No doubt. I'm looking through Spotrac. There are a couple of names kind of in that range I like. Obviously, we've talked about Herb Jones as a name to like. I know Washington's not going to give up Sarr, but
no, that's a pipe.
Naismith is a good name I like. I
think Indiana's going to try and add, if anything. Like I think the one name that I think makes sense, and especially if you want this team to continue to get crazier, that people mentioned is Bobby Portis. People thinking Milwaukee's going to go the other way and sell off a bunch of guys now that it looks like Giannis is going to be out for an extended time, if not the full season. Bobby Portis is the type of like kind of flexible big that I think would fit in really well and complement what the Cavs do here and would allow them to stay with a two big lineup a good majority of time than going small as often as they do. So like, I don't know, if you're looking for names, that was one that like stuck out to me, along with Daron Sharp, along with I mean that's probably the best one. The other one, especially if we're talking more about on the wing, I love Sadiq Bey. That's
the other name that's out there right now.
Yeah, and I think he has a super manageable contract. Be one of those where maybe you could dump Lonzo's salary, but then have to give up a pick to get him back. But those are the kind of names that I think are realistic that they'll look at, that they are looking at right now.
Yeah, Sadiq Bey was mine. My other one I think would have been like Royce O'Neal, but I don't know what. Phoenix is in a weird spot where like they're kind of doing all right, but they could totally tear it down tomorrow.
Yep, they could, and I don't know. We'll find out. The Cavs, like we've stated, even with the stinker on Friday, they've been playing really well for like 15 to 20 games now, and continuing to get better. The last 5, they're second in the league in offensive efficiency. They're like fourth, and they're around fourth in pretty much every shooting metric. And then defense, they're around. The last 5 games they're 12th, last 10 games they're 9th. Like that's the recipe for this team, is to be one of the best offensive teams in the league. And can you be better than league average on the defensive end, and that's their recipe, and they're finally kind of finding that this season, that like they had it for almost all of last season. And speaking of last season, don't look at Ty Jerome's box score of his first game if you don't want to, because
it'll make you so sad, dude.
I actually turned on some of the game and watched him, and he looked exactly like he did last year. I love Ty Jerome still. I still root for Ty Jerome. I'm not ashamed or embarrassed or anything to admit that. I love the guy. He was a great Cav. I wish he still was a Cav, and I hope he has a lot of games just like he did last night.
No doubt. No doubt.
All righty. So we'll close out the Sunday show like we always do, saying something nice on the internet. So Skylar, what do you got? Say something nice on the internet.
Ooh, I don't know if I really put one together.
I can go if you want to put. I'll go first because I did
go ahead.
Look at one. I don't get into this. I don't get into celebrity culture or anything too much. But I did want to call it the death of Catherine O'Hara yesterday. Oh. She's one of my all-time favorite actresses. And by all accounts, and none of us know, we're not in Hollywood, but like just an unbelievably good person. Someone that like seems like everyone who worked with her had nothing but positive things to say, and she's iconic to me. I mean, Home Alone's like my favorite movie from my childhood still to this day. Schitt's Creek is one of my all-time favorite shows, and a million other things that she's been in. And just hope I think she seemed like she brought a lot of light to the world, both through her art and through her as a person. And would have called out that seems like we lost a good one, and wish everyone in her circle, peace with it.
Dang, that was probably one I should have done, because we also love Catherine O'Hara for all the things, the Beetlejuice, the Nightmare Before Christmas, Home Alone, like the list goes on and on. We love pretty much anything that she's ever done. We love.
Well, we can share it. We can share Catherine O'Hara. She deserves multiple mentions and things. I think like I said, you never know whether it's in the sports world or the entertainment world, like about the person. You just know their art. You don't know about the person, but like she's one that seemed like she had a unanimous approval rating, and it'd be hard to imagine that she wasn't that type of person. And yeah, I know I'm gonna try and get my daughter to watch Home Alone with me today, and if that doesn't work, we'll watch a few episodes of Schitt's Creek tonight. So
there you go.
Yeah. So well, for Skylar Webker, I'm Kevin Lynch. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Block the Shot Stop. As always, we appreciate you following us on all the socials, and especially subscribing to us on YouTube or any of the audio platforms. We really do appreciate if you can give us a rating. That helps get us in the algorithm and helps more Cavs fans find us that want to hang out with us. So for that, I want to wish everyone a very warm, hopefully Sunday and Monday here in the Midwest. And as always,
go Cavs.